It's the final meeting of our July campout in Greenwater. It's been a great week. I'm so glad you were all here. Last night we had some great experiences. We're going to share those with you. I don't know, did anybody have anything from yesterday during the day that they'd like to share? No? Oh.
Balloon number 15 was... Balloon number 15 was found in the balloon woods.
Okay. Awesome.
and a pretty good imprint on the ground. It's like twice as wide as my foot. I've got a picture of it. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Just for the viewers at home, would you like to do a quick explanation as to what the balloon woods is?
Over the last 14 months, we've found 15 mylar balloons in under very dense canopy cedar, fir, and hemlock forest. Very, very heavy canopied forest. Within about a 200-yard radius, maybe less than that, we found 15 balloons.
Wow.
Nowhere else, you can wander in the woods, nowhere else do you find mylar balloons, but in the balloon woods.
Awesome. Cool, thank you.
Until this morning when one was on.
Oh yeah, until this morning.
Yeah.
There was one that was found this morning up the road, a blue balloon, mylar balloon, and it's still up for discussion whether it ought to be included or not.
Okay.
But still.
Yeah.
So I went to bed about 11 or so, and I got in the cot, and there's whistles back behind the tent down the trail there, and then straight back, and then another whistle came from here would be to the left. So they were whistling back and forth for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then I asked them to stop because I wanted to go to sleep.
Okay.
And they did. So it was,
Okay.
And I thought I heard talking, but I'm not completely sure.
Okay. Now we have something that kind of goes along with that. Toby and Aaron.
Yeah, we were in the spot she was talking about. It's super dark, and it was the spot Patrick showed me. So we just sat our chairs there for about 20 minutes, and it's so black you can't even tell if your eyes are closed. And we really didn't hear anything. We did talk a little bit, but we weren't loud, and we were back there pretty far. But we didn't hear the whistling, but it was about the 20-minute mark or so that we sat back there. And then as we're walking back, too, you saw a white flash of light in the beginning of the balloon forest. Yeah, it was a little sparkly thing. So, it was pretty.
It was pretty.
Okay, so after the walk that you guys, or after we went to the top of the mountain, we got back that you guys went back there,
Yeah.
and to me that tells me that what the whistles that Debbie was hearing was them announcing that you guys were in the woods.
The whole time we were in the
Yeah,
woods.
the whole time you were in the
Right.
woods, she was hearing whistles,
Yeah.
and I think maybe you guys were far enough back
Yeah.
that you weren't hearing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So another thing that happened right as we got back, the little dog Amelia was right over here barking.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy barking.
And we could hear that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, she was just completely going off. A few minutes after we kind of got her under control, there was a large knock just right over here. And Patrick had walked over in that direction, and we heard the knock, and we're kind of thinking, well, Patrick, and almost immediately he turns around and he goes, that wasn't me. That was not me.
Not me.
So, the only other thing I can think of that happened while we were sitting here by the fire was Courtney was over there sitting about where Maynell is, and she about jumped out of her chair. But that turned out to be some mice climbing the tree behind her.
I was hearing stuff going on behind me for a long time, though.
Well, we did hear two knocks from you. Or taps, definitely taps.
Yeah, I was sitting next to Kevin back here, and there was a lot of movement going on, and then he was telling me about his tap.
There was a few of us just around the campfire, and definitely heard a tap tap behind the trailer. It could have been the trailer itself, but it was very deliberate, and everyone at the campfire heard it.
Cool.
Don't know what it was.
Okay, so everybody broke up. What? I went to bed around 12:30. I think you all left what, about 1?
It won, yeah.
Okay, so I'm down at the very end of the road here by myself now. It was uneventful. I went in. There was no sound. There was no mimicking. There was no noise whatsoever when I went in. Got comfortable. I'm estimating about 3 o'clock. I woke up. There was, I'm looking at the ceiling of the tent, and I'm always looking at the ceiling of the tent, waiting for lights, things to happen. And something caught my eye out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head, and it wasn't shining on the tent, but it was shining through the tent on the back. There was a very intense white light coming from across the creek, and I watched it for about a minute, and it just faded out to nothing. This morning I went out and looked, and I'm up above the creek, and it's on the other side. It's down low, so I'm what, 20 feet higher than the water level there, and it's all trees behind me on both sides of the river. So how this big light that was so brilliant could shine without casting any shadows from the trees, I don't know, but that was pretty cool. When we got out here this morning, we're sitting here and we kind of sit around and we reminisce about the things that we experienced, and that prompts other people to remember the things that they did. Terry was the first person out here, and of course I asked, did anything happen? And she said, I think so, but she wasn't sure. So when she said that, it kind of prompted me to tell her about something that happened this morning that I also wasn't sure about, that it was very strange. This morning at about 6:15, Goldie woke me up at the door of the tent. She wanted to go out and go potty. I let her out. We went out, and she came up here, did some business, got a drink of water. We went back to the tent, got in, and I'm all burrowed in. She's laying on my legs, and we're all cozy and warm, but I'm wide awake, and a very clear vision in my head of a tall, thin, light brown Sasquatch walking right past my tent. And it was so clear, and it was so real, and it was like a dream, except I was wide awake. And it wasn't something that I actually heard or saw, but in my mind it was so real. It was just this intensely clear vision of this Sasquatch walking past my tent. And when I told Terry that, her eyes got really big, and I'll let you take it from here, Terry.
After we went into the trailer, well, prior to going to bed, Courtney had left the sliding window open over the sink, just the screen there. And then we all got in bed, and I was almost drifting off, and I heard a crunch, like somebody walking on gravel. And I thought, oh, there's something there. And then I heard a big, like that. I didn't hear an exhale, but just a big sniff, drawing in of whatever was in the trailer. And I fell asleep because I thought, oh, it's going to start. But I'm tired, so I fell asleep.
That was so funny. It's a recurring thing.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Stop it.
And then at some point, I would say within an hour of falling asleep, I guess I was asleep. I don't know. But it was very crystal clear in my mind as to what was happening outside. And there were big thuds all the way around this camp area. And in my mind, this is where I don't know if I was asleep or not, but I saw a big Sasquatch. Of course, they're all big, but I would say however from the ground to the top of the trailer there. I don't know how far that is. 10 feet or so. Walking around and stomping when it had a step. And it was brown, not like chocolate brown, more of a camo brown with a little bit of, I saw green in it. I don't know if they were leaves or what, but yeah, so it was weird. I didn't know if it really happened or not, but it was very clear in my mind.
Yeah, so for us to be sitting here, discussing what we experienced last night, and it's like, well, this happened to me, and I watch her eyes get big, and then she starts adding a few details, and I'm like, really? And then we add a few more details. It's like, it was brown, light brown, and I didn't see any green, but I could, in my vision, there was clearly the sun spots on its fur or hair as it moved past.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
So
was
maybe
very clear.
creating a few shadows in there that I interpreted as green, but
Yeah. Okay, so shortly after we were discussing this, Erin joined us. And she had something that she wasn't sure about this morning that she also experienced. Did you want to tell us about that?
Well, it was kind of the dream thing again, and I was woken up by, I think Patrick said that it was him throwing a lot of wood on the fire, because I thought I was woken up to a huge wood crack. But I think it was, what woke me up was the fire getting restoked. And I was dreaming about like Scrabble pieces or a name or something, but Toby's like, you're probably dreaming about Dweezil Zappa, because the name I thought was something like Zwee or Dwee, or I don't know. I gotta write it down. I'm dyslexic anyways, right? So I'll have to like reconfigure the letters, but I got the distinct feeling it was related to what you guys were talking about. So
Yeah.
Besides that, I slept like a baby.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you would hear wood being. It's interesting that you would hear wood being put on this fire past that trailer down the hill.
Loud.
Yeah, down the hill where you guys are camped. That sound would have wafted across and up.
plus
Plus the yeah. So I don't know how much wood you were putting on there, Patrick, but I find that very interesting.
Stuff that pops.
Yeah, but also when Patrick's in there, he makes a lot of noise when he's in there.
Right, this sounded like a baseball bat home
He
run.
does. He makes a lot of noise when he's in that.
I
trailer.
can't imagine, but I'm just saying that's a very loud pop to travel that distance through there, over the hill, down the side to your camp where you could hear that.
And it woke me
Just
up.
saying.
It woke me up so that I would literally remember. It was so loud it woke me up out of a dead baby sleep. I was sleeping good, and because it woke me up, I sat up and I got what I got, the letters,
The
so I could
message.
remember it. Yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah. So kind of neat.
Very neat.
When you
Cool.
remember, when you do the letters, will you let us know what the name
I will. Yeah, maybe it's like, what is it called, an anagram, where you have to. It's like Scrabble pieces. Yeah. Because there were so many consonants, I thought, well, that's just ridiculous. I was sitting up trying to say it, going, Dwee, and he's like, what are you doing? Oh, it's a little creepy. Besides that, you were sleeping good.
Yeah.
Till, yeah, but if it wasn't for the big pop or whatever, I would have never remembered. I would have slept right through it. So, some loud popping wood there, Sandy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you
didn't
very
hear
much.
anything,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay, so somebody else had an experience that
Okay.
so what happened?
Well, we just saw a light as we were walking out of here. So we walked home last night about 1. And as we were on the bridge, Kevin was ahead of us just by a minute maybe. And we all had our red lights on. And just as we're on the bridge, just straight ahead of us, which is the curve, past our driveway, just a real bright white light. We just thought, is that Kevin? But we asked him and it wasn't him. He left his red light on and turned into our campsite. wasn't an orb. It wasn't twinkling. It was not as big as if you had a car headlight on. It wasn't that big and bright, but personally I thought it was brighter than a headlamp or just a flashlight. Donna might have had her own opinion on if it was a lantern. She thought maybe more, but no movement. Just a real bright light, and it didn't seem like it should have been there because the road curve's there. And to me, it was just past the curve. And, being the scaredy cats we are, we turned on our brighter lights to see what the heck or who it was. And probably right before the driveway, it just went off. So I don't know. It was a bright white light that nobody seems to say they were walking around with it on or with a flashlight about 1 o'clock.
Did you see it go out?
It just went out as fast as it came on. Yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't feel orbish. I didn't see, but the size of it to me was just, I couldn't figure out what it was. I don't know.
Well, cool. Thank you.
And that was about 1-ish. Yep.
Okay.
So when I saw it, it was before the bridge. I mean, I didn't see Kevin because I looked down there and I didn't see Kevin walking, but he's tall and he walks fast, and I do not. So I didn't see him, and then when I saw the light, it was getting closer to more like your campground, where you guys are camped, and we were up on the road. That's when I saw the light. And I thought, what is that? And to me, it was like, well, no, that's not right, because right when you get over the bridge, you have to take a right, and then go up to our campground, and it was past that. I was thinking, well, that's past our turn. I'm like, okay, so who's out there? I couldn't see the source of where the source came from, but it was kind of shined up on the trees, and it was right there because there's a bend that turns to the left, and that's where it came from. And we walked over the bridge, it was still there, and like Dana and I say, okay, so much for our red and green lights. Our other lights are going to go on because I want to see where I'm at and where that source is coming from. And then it didn't go off until right by the end of the bridge before we get to our turn to the right, and then it just went out. It was gone,
You turned your light on because you were scared, not because you were curious.
Yeah. Curious and scared /
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. I believe Ashley had something to share, too.
Yeah. So the first night that we got here, there was a scratch at the end of at our feet on the tent, and then last night there was a series of 3 scratches, and it happened on the same side where the door is, but instead of directly where the feet were, it was off to the right where the door is, and then to the right of the door, which is closest to the creek. And we laid down. It was between like 1:40 and 2 o'clock. Yvonne had fallen asleep. I was on the verge. It was totally quiet. And then there was a single, very much horizontal across in the middle on that wall of the tent, a nail scratch across it. And then it completely alerted me, and I was awake. I tried to nudge her, but she was pretty asleep, and so I laid there and tried to focus on the lights and shadows in the tent, and I didn't really see any movement. And then I'm falling back asleep. About 15 minutes later, there was a series of 2 scratches, and it was sit like that. And then again, I'm alerted, I'm awake, and I'm looking around. There's no footsteps. There's no coming or going sounds. It's just the singular, and then the second time there was 2, and then again 15 minutes later it sounded like a whole handful at the same time, like that. It definitely wasn't anything dropping from trees and hitting the tent and then sliding down. I could very much pinpoint that it was in the middle across
on the side of the tent, which has the door, and then off to the right, closest to the creek. And then after that, I fell asleep.
Okay.
So no other activity, but definite scratches.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? No? We're all good then? Okay, well, I guess that wraps up our last meeting of our camp out. And it's been great, everybody. Thank you all for being here and participating. It's been a wonderful week. I've enjoyed having every one of you here with us. And I can't wait till we do it again. So, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.